What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel. This week we're focusing back on our 1970 C10 Shop truck. In the last episode you saw us put a full color change on this thing, changing it from red to green with the two-tone. And this week we're gonna get started on some engine work. We're gonna be refreshing our engine with all new gaskets, as well as some Holley EFI parts and a brand new ignition system. But the first thing that we have to do is start tearing this engine down. All right, so with the engine out of our C10 pickup truck, it's gonna give us a chance to do some maintenance on it. It's got upgraded lifters, push rods, and all the essential stuff to go with a larger cam. So everything in the valve train is, I'm assuming, upgraded. I haven't pulled off the valve covers just yet, but you know, the tie bar here with these powered cams, lifters are a pretty clear indication that we're gonna have something else going on underneath here. We're not gonna dive too deep into modifying anything. Really, we're just gonna be doing some maintenance, changing some gaskets, changing out the covers. We're actually gonna change our valve covers and get rid of these stamped steel Edelbrocks, and the same thing with our oil pan. We're gonna get some nice fabricated piece from Moroso. And then we'll also, as you can see, all the paint is all coming off of here. So we're gonna get some fresh paint on it and get it freshened up. So with a little bit of paint and a little bit of polish, we've got our Smallblock looking nice and fresh, and we're getting ready to stick back into the 70 C10 chassis. Waiting on a couple little small things, a set of spark plugs, but we've got all new gaskets over here to get our oil pan, valve cover gaskets, intake manifold, and water pump. We also got a rear main seal to stick in this thing to make this thing leak free, and it's gonna look really nice. So all we have left to do is reassemble the accessory drive and get our intake, balancer, and water pump back on so we could be ready to put back in the truck.
We're finally gonna move forward with the front suspension. We don't have everything we need, but we do have enough that we can get our motor installed today, which will keep Andrew moving in a forward direction, which is important. So I did go down to my buddy's shop. I picked up the GSI Crossmember, powder coated, ready to go. It's got our hats for our front bags and our motor mounts, and these are inner frame stiffeners. So we're gonna be able to get this subframe up today, get it all bolted in. We are waiting on the rest, a clamshell motor mount for our Smallblock, but hopefully today we'll get the subframe in, we'll get the motor in, and then we can keep moving. We already prepped our chassis. We got rid of all the old suspension in a previous episode, and we got it all coated and painted because the front Crossmember is completely bolted. Now, if you remember, the back step notch or C-notch came uncoated, and that's because it is welded in. So obviously you gotta weld it and then you gotta paint it. So anyways, we're ready to go, man. I got my subframe onto my Jegs floor jack, and basically just gonna slide this puppy right in. It lines up with the factory subframe mounts or cross member mounts. Those holes, the 3 holes on the bottom of our frame right there. So that's gonna slide up. Then we're gonna get our inner frame stiffener in, and we'll get a couple bolts on the bottom side holding it up, and then we'll get the top hat for our bags mounted on the top of the frame rail. Get all this bolted in, we'll get our motor mounts put on, and we're gonna get that Smallblock put in today. All right, we got our lower subframe tightened, not completely tightened, but you know, it's holding up there. We have our top airbag bracket tightened fully because at this point we have 3 holes down here. One of our factory holes line up, and then there's 2 holes here on the bottom that we're gonna have to mark, pull this bracket back off, drill those out. That way we could get bolts in these as well. So that's the process. Tighten it on, lay them out, pull it off, drill them out, and then we're gonna put it back on. All right, we got our GSI front subframe all bolted up. We got our brackets here for our motor mounts. Those came in yesterday. Smallblock 350 clamshell motor mount. So those are gonna sit like this. This side goes to the motor. Our motor is ready to go in. Amazon. Look at this. So I don't know where the confusion is. I don't know if it's a GSI thing or perhaps maybe we just ordered the wrong mount. So I am gonna have to pull these brackets off and modify them a little bit. We're gonna cut some of this area over here. I think that's a full sleeve in there, so it's not threaded or anything, so I don't think that should be an issue. The only problem obviously is this part is powder coated, and now we are going to mess it up. So let's get this fixed so we can get this motor placed. All right, motor mounts are on the engine. We have our brackets modified. I keep a black paint marker around for stuff like this. At least it's got a coating on it, it's not gonna rust, and you're not gonna see it, so we're moving on. Let's get this motor put in.
All right, we're moving along with the 70 C10 build. We still have our axle assembly out of the truck. As you can see, it's all done with the fabrication. It's coated with some fresh paint, and there's still a couple more upgrades that we have for it. We are gonna be installing a new gear set, keeping the same 373 factory gear ratio, but we are upgrading the carrier to a limited slip version, and we are installing new gears, and we're also gonna be bending out stainless steel hard lines for our braking system. So I've already got the axle up on the table at an accessible height. First thing I'm gonna do is just bend up these brake lines and just have them ready to go once we're ready to put the axle back in. All right, so first thing we're gonna start off with getting our carrier assembly installed is getting our carrier bearings pressed onto the actual carrier. So typically you'll have underneath your carrier bearings on your original carrier, there'll be a shim of some sort to help with bearing preload. On the original one, there actually was none. So I'm gonna start this one off exactly the same way without any shimming underneath the bearings. We'll go ahead and press them on. I've already got to starting to press the lower or one side. I don't know if you can tell, but I haven't gotten it down. Yeah, you can't see it in the camera. Maybe right there, yeah. So there's a small little gap still on here. Haven't been able to get the bearing set all the way down because if you can see the chamfer here, this chamfer portion sticks out past the bearing race. So I have to have that much sticking out of the bearing. All right, so I found a sleeve for my ball joint kit. Fits just perfect in here. You can see it's not gonna crush the cage because the cage can spin freely. All right, carrier bearings are on. Ring gear is installed and torqued. Next thing is going to be our pinion gear. Right here I have my shim that was underneath our pinion bearing from the original setup. I already pulled it off the old pinion gear, so I'm going to put this on here as a good start to get our pinion depth. I'm hoping that we won't have to make any adjustments there once we do our teeth pattern check, making sure that the pinion depth is proper and right in the center of our ring gear. With the original shim, I'll put this on, press on our bearing, and at that point we'll be able to start mocking up the ring and the pinion gear and checking the backlash and the pinion depth. All right, so our first attempt with the original shimming with our new carrier didn't work out so great. You saw I had a lot of play. So what we would call that is our backlash. So what we have to do is move our ring gear in towards our pinion a lot further. And I also felt that the preload on our carrier bearings was a little bit excessive also. So what we're gonna do is shorten the overall width of the carrier. All right, so we have these two shims that were between our bearings previously on the left and the right side. So not only are we gonna add more to this side and take out from this side, but we're also gonna lessen the overall width. So it gives a little bit less preload on our carrier bearings. Once we get close enough, then we'll be able to check our pinion depth and make sure that our pinion is deep enough into the ring gear, making proper contact. All right, so installing it with the stock shims, we ended up a little bit too tight. The spec for the Yukon gear is between 6 and 10 thousandths. So I pulled it back out, removed my original shim, and I felt that the preload on the bearing was a little bit tight too. So I pulled only out of this side 4 thousandths of an inch, and now we are pretty on the money here between the 6 and 10. We're at 7, which is a little on the tighter side, but not bad. So we'll leave it like this. We'll torque down our caps and then we'll move on getting the rear housing complete, getting our axles in and the cover on.
All right, so now that we got the rear end back together, we're gonna outfit it with some brand new brakes from Wildwood. We got a big brake kit here, got our parking brake drums, our brackets, calipers, rotor hats. Rotors are still in the box because they're too big to fit on the table, and a bunch of assorted hardware. So we're gonna go ahead and get this stuff all assembled. That way our rear end is ready to go back in.
All right, we slid our rear end in with our motorcycle lift. Worked out great. Shout out to Andrew for thinking outside the box. And yes, everybody, it is not upside down anymore. It has been fixed. So we finally got all of our fittings and things we were missing, like our bushings and our crush sleeves and our misalignment spacers. So we're gonna get this rear end finalized. We're gonna get our drive shaft measurement today. We're also gonna be getting our specs for our new wheels that we're getting. So big day, let's get to work. All right, we're under the truck. This Crossmember right here looks like it sticks down, I don't know, maybe 2 inches or inch and a half lower than our frame rail. So that's gonna be our lowest point right now. And that will prevent us from laying our rockers. So that's no bueno. Brady's gonna go ahead and cut this one out, and we're gonna fabricate a tubular style Crossmember, which we're also gonna use to mount our 2-piece drive shaft. Fun. I knew we should have taken that out before. I knew it. Crossmember, which means we are getting ready to throw our transmission in. All right, now we got our drive shaft measurements. We're gonna go ahead and get these sent off to the boys at Knoxville Driveline. They have yet to disappoint us yet, and I'm pretty sure they're gonna take care of us on this one as well. And that's a stopping point for this episode. We got our motor in, we got our transmission in, and a whole bunch of goodies along with that. We got that front subframe in. We are still missing a few components to get this truck off of our jack stands and on the ground. Hopefully that's gonna be next episode, but I'm not gonna promise you that. So meanwhile, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Peace.
Peace.